be laughing and praising God, the God that we love. I love you, Roxy. Thank you, Julie, for sharing that. All right, I'm going to have both Emily and Isaiah come up and share their thoughts and hearts with you now. And then just anyone who wants to come and share, no matter how long it takes, we want everyone to have an opportunity. So come on up. You want me to go? Rock, paper, scissors.
Well, my mom already stole like most of the stuff I was going to say. A few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with my mom about what I remember from my childhood, from early childhood. She asked if I remembered the house I was born in, and I didn't. Maybe one or two memories, but super vague. Then she asked if I remembered the house my brother was born in. I had a few more memories there, but still not much. Then I told her that the house that we moved into just after my brother was born is extremely clear. I remember everything about that house. My Spider-Man room, the huge backyard, the family room with the weird green carpet that we all hated but kind of loved, birthday parties, dinners, all the things. But what I remember most about that house was Roxy, because she moved into that house with us and stayed up until we moved to California. She instantly became family. She wasn't just someone my parents took in. She was my sister. I have memories of Roxy watching Friends in the family room while my baby brother played on the floor. He was just a little older than my son at the time. I remember Roxy's room at the end of the hall and how I always thought it smelled like peaches. I think it was just her like body spray or whatever she used a lot of. I remember how she slept harder than anyone else I've ever met, and how she needed multiple alarm clocks just to wake her up. And then most of the time those alarm clocks wouldn't work, so my mom would go into her room and repeatedly say her name until she finally woke up. I don't think my mom thought it was, but I thought it was super funny. I remember playing all the games with Roxy and watching all the shows with her. I thought she was so cool, and I wanted to be just like her. Fast forward to just a handful of months later, when we moved home from California and started Hope Point with Marco and Rosie, Mark and Julie. I remember hearing my parents saying, "We're not going to ask anyone to leave their church and come to Hope Point, except Roxy." I vividly remember thinking, oh good, because that just makes sense. And she gladly came. She was present for every season of Hope Point, all of the highs and all of the lows, serving in multiple ministries from media, sound, teenage Matthews, personal Uber driver, youth, first impressions, discipleship, and the list goes on, leading many to salvation and growing the kingdom of God. My dad has always said that there are 9 founding members of Hope Point Church. My parents, Mark and Julie, Marco and Rosie, me, Zay, and Lucas, because he liked to include the kids. But as I stand before you today, I, as a representative of the 9, I'm going to make an executive decision and change it to 10. Roxy is number 10, so can we just stand up, church, and give her like the well-deserved for serving so... Yeah. So, Dad, you can't call it the 9 anymore. Roxy has always been me and Isaiah's big sister, and everyone knew it. She wore the title loud and proud. Through the years, she taught us countless valuable life lessons, including teaching me how to drive, which is partly why I got a few speeding tickets at 16. And apparently I still follow too closely. And helping me get my first job doing mock interviews with me. She listened when we needed to vent, and she offered good, solid, godly advice when we were ready to receive it. She made us belly laugh so good, and she was literally so funny. And she protected us. Man, did she protect us. She fought for us like a big sister should, and I'll never forget it. She was the ultimate big sister. When I was a teenager, Roxy became my youth pastor. This was her favorite thing. She loved that role, and she absolutely thrived in it. Roxy made camps, lock-ins, fairs, fundraisers, campouts, and Thursday night youth group a blast. She poured her heart out for each and every student that came into these doors. We were her kids, and we loved it. So shout out to Generations Youth, because I know a lot of you guys are here today. Though her position as youth pastor got cut short when she was hit with unexpected health issues, she never took the youth pastor hat off. She continued to shepherd us. We were her students. And we were her students, and she was, is, and always be my youth pastor. Through my adult years, Roxy stayed just as involved and invested in my life as when I was a kid. I spent hours and hours at her apartment in South Salem before and after work just because I loved being over there. When she found out I was dating Matthew, she took me to Eugene just so I could see him because I had never driven that far before, and also I was kind of young. When we got married, she came to our special dinner that we only invited immediate family to because she was immediate family. When I found out I was pregnant with Michael, she led me through a discipleship Devo that we did together every single day. And when I went into labor, she wore a Friends-themed auntie shirt I made. I'm actually wearing it. Didn't know I would be wearing it when I wrote this. She couldn't be at the hospital with me because she was recovering in rehab from her last health scare. But she wore that shirt proudly and told me that all of the nurses at the rehab center celebrated the arrival of her nephew with her. She loved me, my husband, and her nephew so well. When Roxy first got sick, it was really scary. I thought we would lose her any day. But as the days, weeks, months, and years went on, she fought. She had so many major health scares, but every time she came out of it. I know she was tired, but nothing stopped her. I think that's why her passing felt so sudden. I had gotten so used to Roxy making it through near-death experiences time and time again. Then it was just over. Over the last week, I've been asking a lot of questions. I asked God, why? Why did she get dealt such a crappy hand? Why didn't God heal her? Why did she never get to experience marriage and motherhood? Why was she taken from us at such a young age? But I've been reminded of two things. The first thing came from Clara, who is wise beyond her years, and she said, Jesus was never married. Scripture says that singleness is good, and sometimes God calls specific people to not be married, and he'll use it to grow the kingdom. Thank you for that. It helped me a lot. And Roxy grew the kingdom very, very well. The second thing is this. In John 9, there's a story about Jesus healing a blind man. His disciples asked him why he was blind and assumed it was because of his sins or his parents' sins. But Jesus says this, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. And that's exactly it. Roxy was dealt a crappy card, but God used it to display his glory through her life. This gives me peace, and I am so grateful that Jesus gave us a special person to do life with. I miss my sister so much, and I'm so overjoyed to know that she is with Jesus and she's finally healed.
I'm recovering from a throat surgery, so my mouth's a little funky. Just heads up. Heads up. I always told people growing up that I had two sisters. Of course, my blood sister Emily, but also my big sister Roxy. She owned that title and represented it proudly. She was so good to us and kind to us, gentle with us, and most of all, she fought for us. I always told my previous relationships, my parents have to approve of you, and both my sisters have to approve of you. When I was in elementary school, Roxy used to pick me up. We would go straight to Dutch Brothers and then to Target. I would always order the same drink as she did because I always looked up to her, but I would immediately guzzle it down before we even left the parking lot. She would say to me, babe, savor your drink. I asked her, what does savor mean? And she told me it meant to enjoy it, save it, and make it last. I'm still working on that one. But I do think Roxy was truly the savor master. She would be sipping on that coffee for the rest of the day. It didn't even matter if she liked it. She would still savor it. Didn't matter what size she got, she would make it last. I feel like that describes Roxy well. She may have not had the most healthiest life, but she savored it. She took what she had and she made it last. She enjoyed it, and God blessed her for it. After Dutch Bros, we would go to Target. Roxy would always meet me where I was at in my childhood and buy me whatever I was into. Lego sets, video games, Minecraft figures, etc. But she was kind of into that stuff too. Once I was in middle school, Roxy would pick me up and we would go to her house and play this game called Skylanders. That's the game where you had the physical figurines and you'd put them on this thing to summon a character on a screen. I remember Roxy had always the coolest characters. So then I decided, hey, we should trade. And we did. That's just how kind she was. Even though I had the crappy ones, she would still trade with me. But then I would do this thing called, quote unquote, can we do a trade back? And she said, babe, that's not how life worked. We can't trade back our decisions. And she's right. And although we were only talking about toys back then, she taught me a lot more of a bigger lesson. Once I was in high school, life got weird, as most high schoolers experience. I went through a dark phase, and I experienced a really bad eating disorder, and I lost lots of weight. And that's something I still fight with. But as soon as Roxy found out about my situation, she went above and beyond to make sure I was okay. She sent me verses every day. She sent me prayers every day. She encouraged me. I remember those times when she would actually take me out to eat, but she wouldn't even force me to order anything. She would take a bite with me, bite for bite, to encourage me. When I moved to California and went to college, I saw Roxy a lot less, but yet she still made an effort to pursue me as her baby brother. She texted me verses, called me on my way to sets, and when I was in town, she would give me the biggest and longest hugs. My last memories of Roxy were special. The last time I saw her was last month. She came up to me after church, hugged me, and whispered in my ear, "You were always my favorite." I know, Roxy, I know. And then she hugged me tighter as we both started crying happy tears. She then told me she had something for me, and she brought me outside to her car. She had made me a blanket. Now, this blanket has history. For context, when I was little, Roxy had gotten me a blanket, and it was green, and I named it Green. I took that thing everywhere. It was kind of concerning. When I got a little older, I left that green somewhere and lost it, and I was devastated as a kid. I had a surgery last week, and Roxy had remade me a new green. She said that she always loved having cozy blankets during her post-op recoveries, and she thought this would be a perfect time for me to have one. Roxy was such a giver. She gave and never stopped. My last conversation with Roxy was over text last week, right before she passed away. She said, "Hey, babe, how are you feeling? How did the surgery go?" I said, "In pain, I can't talk much, but I have my green, and that makes me happy. I'm excited to see you. I love you." And she said, "Yay, I'm so glad it's bringing you comfort." And then she said, was there any complications with the surgery? And then I never replied until the day she passed. And she had said, sorry, I'd skipped a part, but she had said, I asked how she was doing, and she said, "I'm doing good. I literally almost got in a bad car accident today on the freeway. All traffic came to a very sudden stop, and I could see the accident unfold. The guy behind me had his shoulder to avoid hitting me. It was crazy." And then she asked, did everything go okay? There's a reason why she didn't get into that car accident that day. And I remember asking God this week, "God, why did you save her from that if she literally passed away this week?" But although that wasn't the time God called her home, God's timing is perfect. And maybe some of us wouldn't be here in this room today if she hadn't gone on the day that she did. Maybe some of us wouldn't have been able to hold her hand in that hospital bed to say goodbye to her. Loving on her, saying our goodbyes to her. Roxy, my big sister, I'm so excited to see you again and party with you in heaven and give you another big, long hug. I love you, sister.
Anybody else would like to share? Come on up. We would love to hear from you tonight. Come on up, Pete.
A big stage here. It's nice. There's a lot of people out there. Yeah, wow. I just want to express from my wife and I, my brother, that we are just so thankful that you loved our sister so much. It's just truly impressive. And we just don't know the extent of her life. She talks a lot, but when she comes over, it's like, she hones in on one topic, but she's like, oh, I got this friend, that friend, all that stuff. And I just want to really express our true appreciation for the love that you gave Roxanne. It's touching my heart. And I really want to hear stories like Isaiah just shared. Like, wow, I don't know. I don't know. And please, come up. I encourage you to talk. And obviously, we're just completely heartbroken. Like, I've never been sadder in my life. And my brother, we've been all over the world. We've seen all kinds of bad stuff, but this is the baddest I felt. And just thank you so much for coming tonight on a Sunday evening at 5 o'clock. And we got all our kids here, and we got great friends like Pastor Ralph Trask. And thank you so much, Pastor and Kevin, Leanne, for coming out. And Isaiah, that story just touched my heart. I got to say something, and so it's like you can't shut me up on the green blanket thing, She made you a blanket twice? I'd buy you one at Kohl's, I want to make it. But just, please, I encourage anyone, please come up and share your stories with us. And we're just so heartbroken. And I thank you so much for coming out tonight. And I'm just absolutely devastated. And that's it. Oh, Roxanne. Oh, well, here's the deal. Roxanne thought she was so broken, and we're sitting here, and my brother and I, we shared a meal together, and Patton's Pizza is the best pizza in Tri-Cities, Grace. And it's the best pizza in the world, And we just sat there and kind of just stared at each other, but she thought she was so broken, but here's the deal. She wasn't. We harvested 8 parts off of Roxanne, from her eyes to her skin, from her bones to her whatever the case is, to help other people. She wasn't broken. She wasn't broken, right? So she could still help other people. And I hate that so much, but like she thought she was broken. Like I'm worthless, And it's like, you're not worthless. Get it out of your mind, you know what I mean? And I encourage everybody out there to make sure you're an organ donor. But 8 parts out of her body to help or save lives for other people. And Roxanne clearly is a giver, and it's just a deal. And truly, I know from my family especially, like we're just so thankful to meet all these people, and look at all these people out here. It's insane, it's great. And who got a tattoo of Roxanne on your arm or your, stand up, please. Everyone stand up. I don't know a single person that would get a tattoo from me on their body. But these people did, right? So they're either insane or there's a great impression made, right? So please come up, share your stories. We would love to hear them. I don't want to stay here all night, but I'll stay here as long as we got to do. I understand there's some sandwiches and Mexican food. And Roxanne loved Mexican food, and my wife hates it, but it's okay. All right, thank you. It's my daughter.
My aunt, Roxanne Carroll, was a really good person, and there's a lot of ways to describe that. But a good way I think I could use is supportive, because all throughout my life, she has supported me no matter what. In whatever sport I chose, like gymnastics or soccer, I was pretty bad at those. But once I finally found my sport, she was always still there for me. And I think for everyone, she always supported you no matter what. But a story I have from her, besides being supportive, is her love for DVDs, because I'll say she had quite a few. And I remember when I was real little, she used to come over to my house and we would watch them all together, and that's how I really figured out that I liked Scooby-Doo. So, really, if you look through her box of DVDs, you could probably find one from every movie you liked. So, that's one thing to take away from her. But she truly was one of the greatest people in my life, and I will really miss her.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Come on up. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, come on up.
Hi, I'm a little bad at this, and I know none of you know me. So, I'm Lena. I was one of her neighbors, actually. I have a 1-year-old, and she really helped me through that change process of becoming a new mom. And I was always alone in my apartment, so she'd let us come over and hang out. And she gave me a bunch of her DVDs, actually. And and she gave me her, DVD player, because my daughter wouldn't go to sleep without watching a movie. And she gave me her whole set of How I Met Your Mother, and that was great. That helped me feel good during the day. There was one time, though, we didn't have enough money to keep our power on, and it was the middle of winter, and I didn't know what to do. We had to wait 4 days till it could be turned back on, and so I went down and I asked her, hey, do you have any candles or blankets or anything? And she was like, oh, girl, come on in, I got it. And she gave me a whole bag of candles, she gave us a bunch of food, and she gave us blankets, and she asked if my daughter was warm and fine, and I was like, oh yeah, my mom came and got her, we're good. And then she invited us over for breakfast the next morning. She was so just loving and inspiring, and I wish I had her in my life longer. She was really great. And our last conversation, I went camping with some friends. It was my first mom break since I'd had my daughter. And she talked to me the morning before we left, and she was asking how my health was and how my daughter's doing and how I'm doing, and she just always checked in on me. And Chandler would play with my daughter, and they would play tug-of-war all the time, and I loved it. It was so great, and I could just sit there with some coffee. She was such a comfort, and she radiated the Lord. You could just feel Jesus all over her. She was great. And she helped me, navigate this hard time. I hope that everybody's doing okay with this. She was really lovely. Thank you.
Well, I could tell probably lots of stories about Rox, but Roxy and I actually had the opportunity to really grow super close just within the last year and a half. I've known her for several years, but she had many families within the family, and she stayed with my mom for a time. She stayed with my sister for a time, a really rough time, and man, just to see how. It's not, I don't think it's a coincidence that this body is able to gather and just support her and love her. She's the catalyst to all of that happening. She's the one that like Leanne was talking about, it was an honor and a pleasure to love Roxy, and an honor and a pleasure to help Roxy and be with Roxy. And I don't even know really what it was, but it was her last big hospital stay. She had a lot of fear going on and stuff, and my mom just called me. I was like, hey, listen, can you come to the hospital and be with Roxy for a little bit? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So I went up there, and this was before we really were super duper close, and just from that moment, it it was like, well, we have to go get Roxy. We're having an event. Somebody go get her. We got to go get her. I just have to tell this story about last time when she was in the rehab center, the old folks home. She would go, hey, can you come to the old folks home and see me, dude? And like, yeah, Rox, I'll come see you. Hey, will you go out and grab Chandler and bring her? Please, I need to see Chandler. Yeah, totally. So I would go clear to Almsville and pick up Chandler. She was staying with one of our amazing church families. I'd go clear to Almsville and pick up Chandler and take her clear to Kaiser to visit Roxy for an hour and then take her clear back out to Almsville. And I literally wasn't mad about it ever. I was like, yeah, let's do this, Chan. But the last time she was at the old folks home, it cracked me up that she called it that because she literally wasn't old and she was in there. She had this guy across the hall, and I remembered his name. It was Walter. And there was this guy across the hall, and I would come in, and I'd be like, hey, Rox, what's up? And she'd go, hey, this guy across the hall, he always needs something, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she'd go, Walter. I'm like, he's laying here, and he just all day, every day, he'll go, hello? Hello? She's like, I'm like sitting here, hello? Somebody help Walter. So it just was super funny, and she would, like, there were a few of us that would go to see her that would take her out to have a cigarette, and there were a few of us that would not, that would refuse. And so, guilty. We had a lot of really cool, long talks on that curb out there in Kaiser. So I'm so blessed and so honored to be with you guys today. She absolutely loved her nieces and nephews. Like, man, she was, man, you guys were her life, so important to her. And I'm just so grateful that whatever the reasons were that I got to have her in my heart and in my life, whether they were good or hard circumstances that just drew us together. Man, we were drawn together, and I just love her so deeply, and I'm so grateful to be with her family today and to see that side of her, because I hadn't had the opportunity to do that, so.
If you don't know who I am, my name's Alexis. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to read a little something that I wrote for Roxy. I cannot promise that I won't get through it without crying, so please just give me grace. Roxy was the most genuine, beautiful human being I had the honor of knowing. Roxy was my friend, my mentor, and auntie figure. She encouraged me, loved me, uplifted me, and believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. She was my greatest friend above all things, a gift I will always treasure. The day before she passed was like any other day we shared. We worshiped Jesus together and spent some time together at my home. We talked and laughed, reminisced about the past, and were hopeful about what the future held. Right up to her very last day on earth, she ministered to my heart and continued to point me back to Jesus. The impact she made on me will stay with me for the rest of my life. I wasn't her youth kid, but she loved me just the same. I valued the wonderful woman that she was and will continue to honor her memory every day. She showed me what true strength looked like. She poured wisdom and love into me and my family. She was there for me no matter what and was a promise keeper. She was constant, a character trait that helped me to heal through many seasons of my life. Roxy poured into me until I was overflowing. When I left her presence, my cup was never empty. What a beautiful gift from God to have a friend like that. I hope everyone in this room gets the chance to experience that. In Ephesians 3:12, it says, "In him and through faith in him, we may approach God with freedom and confidence." Roxy wrote, "The veil being torn and being able to have a personal relationship and individual access to God is to me the best news ever. Just the thought of it leaves me in awe." She wrote, "Thank you for tearing the veil so that I could get to you on my own." I am so grateful we get the opportunity to come boldly and confidently to God, Our faith in him draws us closer. That in of itself is such a beautiful thing. I'm grateful that Roxy found her way to Jesus on her own. I just know that God said, "Well done, my faithful servant," to her. Indeed, she was. It's my prayer that every person is on fire for God the way Roxy was, that we continue to pour into others, love people, and continue to show up. Her memory lives inside all of our hearts. To my wonderful friend, I love and miss you dearly. Your words ring true to my heart today. Even in my brokenness, you remind me where my hope lives. Thank you.
I'm coming up here because the brother asked for people to come up here. And I want to just encourage everybody out there. You may think that this is kind of an odd thing for people to come up and do this. I want to let you know that we do this here. That's what we do. And so I want to encourage you to come if you have something that you want to share. Please don't withhold it, because this is the chance to do it. And it will encourage somebody. So I'll tell a couple of stories. I got a lot of Roxy stories too. So I want to tell you what probably the characteristic that she had that I think was most impressive to me. And I got this mint that I'm trying to get out of my wife. So the characteristic that I think was most impressive to me about Roxy was a little bit of sarcasm, but a little bit of causticness. Some people would think it's caustic, but she was just real. She didn't play games. She didn't mince words. She didn't manipulate. It wasn't like that. If she didn't like something, she would tell you. And so there were things that she didn't like, and there were things that she did like. One thing she didn't like people telling her, "I know exactly how you feel." She didn't like that, okay? Because she's like, "I'm in pain all the time. You know, I feel like my body is killing me," you know, and all this stuff. And somebody comes up and says, "I know exactly how you feel because I've got an ingrown toenail." Yeah, or whatever. But she was real. So I think I got closest to her during the Bible studies at my brother Mark and sister-in-law Julie's home, because she came there for years, and we had Bible study every week. It was the most consistent thing that Hope Point ever did, okay? Because he never canceled, except on just a few occasions, and Roxy didn't cancel either. It's easy for me to go and do stuff because it's easy. For her, it wasn't so easy, but she still did it. But she would gang up on Mark with me. Her and me could both gang up on him. He was an easy target. So she had a sense of humor that was pretty quick-witted, but then they'd gang up on me. You know, I said that the other day, and that didn't seem fair. But she was really a cool person. I liked her realness, and I think that was that characteristic that I appreciated. And now the story. So most of you don't know me, but some of you do, or maybe most of you do and some of you don't. But I like buses. I have a bunch of buses. I always surprise my wife, Martha, with another bus. So that's a Roxy story. So for one of my buses, me and Pastor Kevin right here, we stole Roxy's car to go get the bus. Roxy was somewhere, I don't remember where she was, but we were in charge of her car. So we just borrowed it without permission. It's better to ask sometimes for forgiveness. You know what I mean? So anyway, we did that, and then we told her after the fact. But it was cool. We went and got a good bus out of it, and I took kids to youth camp. But then there was one time where Roxy actually went with me to pick up a bus. Now, don't tell Martha, okay? Me and Roxy and Steve, we went up to get a secret bus into Washington. We went up there on this trip. She's like, "What do you want to, what? Hey, Roxy, can you give me a," what? You know, it was, but we did it. She would come over to my house. I have a house behind my house. My mom lived there until she passed away a few years ago. But Roxy would come over. She would visit my mom. She would call her grandma. She came over because Steve was there too. So that was a side thing. But Roxy was cool. So if you've got something to share about your memory with her, just please come up and do it. Her brother said he doesn't want to stay here all night, but he wants to hear something. Nobody knows except you some of the stuff that you've done. So God bless you guys.
Hello? Okay.
What's your name, young lady?
You're my Auntie Becky. You know my name. Tell them who you are. I'm Chloe Ray Rosenaw, and I know Roxy. She was kind of like an auntie to me, you know. And one time, my papa's phone wasn't working, and he asked my dad to come help him, and my dad was too stressed out. He had to get the house cleaned and everything. So he called Roxy to come over, and Roxy came over and helped, and all I know about her is that she's nice and she likes to help, and she's really kind and sweet. And because my dad had a lot of work to do, she came over and helped. Because he gets all stressed out and frustrated.
So we all got frustrated with my dad and his lack of technical skills, and my dad calls her IT Roxy. She's his IT goddess, Roxy the IT goddess. So if you were one of Roxy's youth students, would you please stand up? Yay! I'm Becky, and I've been going to Hope Point Church for a while, but Roxy and I became really close when she got sick in, I think it was the first nursing home she went in, and she was my kids' youth pastor. And when she got sick and she was in the nursing home, I was like, you guys, we have to go. Like, we have to go be there. She was been there for you guys. She was there. I went through a terrible time in my life, and she was there for my children and guided them and supported them when I couldn't. And so I was like, it's our time. So we're going, and we're going to be there for her. And so we went to the nursing home, and she sat in there, and she made friends with all the nursing staff, and we broke in, and we brought all the candy and food and all the things, and we watched movies in the nursing home. So I was like, that's it. I am never leaving her side. I love her more than anything. So she was sick, and at that point, I couldn't let her go. I loved her too much, and she had such a big impact. She led my boys to the Lord, and there is no greater gift to a mother than for her own children to know the Lord. That's the desire, one of the desires of my heart, and Roxy was a huge part of the Lord blessing me with the desires of my heart. And up until, and she had Lexi because she had Cameron. So Lexi, who came up, that's because Roxy was Cameron's youth pastor. So it just goes on and on. I'm devastated also. This is so hard. I love her so much, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. I haven't got to meet all of you yet, but I know how much she loves you. It was always about you guys. She loves you all so much. And I got to see all the pictures of you guys, and it's so good to see all the girls. But I guess up until the time that she went to the hospital, I was like, do I need to keep protecting her? You know, like that was probably one of the hardest things. Like I didn't, when you're losing someone, you don't know. Your role starts to change. And so I'm glad that I don't have to protect her and feel like I need to protect her anymore. She's always been protected by the Lord, but I was one of her earthly sisters that she loved to shoot. I don't know if you guys saw, there was a picture of her up there. She was a good shot. She looked terrible when she was shooting, like awful. And she would be like, am I doing it right? And I'm like, you're on target, but you look like crap. Like, so I don't know, just keep doing what you're doing. Like I told her all the things, and she did it. But yeah, that was one of the things. She had lost a lot of control over things in her life, and that was one of the things that she had decided she wanted to take control this way, and she wanted to learn how to shoot. So we went out, and I trained her, and she was an excellent shot. She was an excellent shot, and she followed all the rules and did all the safety things, and anyway, so I love her, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you guys. So.
I'm going to say one more thing. One time I went to my Auntie Becky's house, and I didn't know Roxy had a dog, but that was like one of my first time meeting her, and she was really cool and nice, and I went, and she lived in my Auntie Becky's camper, and I met her, and she had a cute little dog. I remember that dog. It was cute. And she was nice and funny and kind.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susan. Hi, Peter. Haven't seen you forever. I grew up with Roxy through our 20s. We became friends in our 20s. And so I just want to share, it's something special about friendships you make when you're an adult, but not really an adult. You know, you're in your 20s, you think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. So Roxy and I were going to Fellowship Church, and we were in the young adult group together. And so you want stories? I have so many stories, but I'm going to try to stick to just two. One of them was we were at youth camp, and she was helping at youth camp. And I believe it was Mike Yoder, possibly, who had this idea that we would make a slip and slide. And it wasn't like the store-bought slip and slide. It was the black tarp that you sprayed soap on, and then you got an inner tube. And you ran and you dove onto the inner tube and you slid down the hill. And this hill was pretty steep. And at the bottom, I think there were some hay bales, but they were kind of old. Were you there, AJ? You remember this? Okay, so we went down the hill a few times, us adults, who were supposed to be adults, you know, we're trying to get the kids to go. And Roxy decided she's gonna go. And it took a lot of encouragement for her because she was not the brave, fearless person that she became. When she was in her 20s, there was a lot of fear, and so I think there's some crying involved, but she finally did it. She went on the slip and slide. She ran and she jumped, or Mike may have pushed her. Not quite sure. He doesn't remember. He's old. So she went down the slip and slide really fast, too fast. And at the bottom of the hill, where there was hay bales, she just kept going. And there was a whole bunch of blackberry bushes. And she just disappeared. And I'm a really good friend, and I laughed really, really hard. All of us were laughing so hard, and then we hear screaming. And maybe some cussing. And she was stuck in the blackberries down below, and the inner tube had popped. And she was down in there, and so we're like, we can't get you. We'll get poked. And she's screaming, Kim, get me! And I don't remember how she got out, but when she did, she was like covered in like pokes everywhere and a little bloody and really mad at us because she knew we had laughed so hard at her. And she just kind of stormed off and was crying. And I'm sure we made up after that because we were still friends, but I don't remember what happened beyond her flying down that hill. The second story I will tell is that we decided as young women in the church we were going to go on a camping trip. And we went to Newport and went camping in a tent. And we decided that we were going to go kayaking. And I think some of those pictures were up. I'm so glad she kept some of those pictures because I don't have those. So that was really cool to see those pictures. She was in a kayak in the pictures. But getting her to that point was a lot difficult, more difficult than it looked like. She was smiling, and she wasn't smiling in the process. So kayaking, we have these guides. They put the kayaks on the ground out of the water, and she gets in. She's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Then they put it in the water, and it was probably 4 inches deep water, and she was crying and clinging to people as she's trying to get in the kayak, and it was a little wobbly, so she's screaming and crying more. But we did get her in the kayak. She had a blast. We went up and down Beaver Creek. We even saw baby beavers, which we all thought was amazing. And then we paddled back, and we had to get her out of the kayak, which was another amount of crying and us laughing at her and her getting mad at us. I feel like that was a lot of our relationship when we were in our 20s, was her getting mad at me because I would laugh at her misfortunes or her falling. And then there was one other time during that camping trip that for some reason some of the young ladies had decided to go jump in the waves in the ocean, and I didn't. I don't know why. But I apparently had more sanity than the others because a wave hit them and they all fell. And they were rolling in the waves, and everybody got up, but not Roxy. She was still rolling in the waves and still crying and yelling and very mad. And so I kind of went to the edge, and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, I am not okay. Why would you even ask me? And she did get up, obviously. She got out of the ocean at some point. But I have a ton of memories of Roxy, of our adventures and our fun things that we did as young women. And we kind of were friends that we didn't have to be together or talk to each other for years. We went years without talking to each other. And it wasn't because of anything bad. It's just we had lives. We had things happen. She was moving forward in her career. I had babies. And so we just had separate lives. But then we could get together, and it was as if nothing changed. We literally could get together, catch up on everything, and then be laughing together again. And it's just funny how life works when that happens. And when she got sick the first time, we went and saw her, and then kept in touch over the years. And then when, oh goodness, it was about November, her and I ended up being in a small group together with some other ladies and really got to reconnect again. We got together once a week, and that was just super special for me to just get to we relived some of our stories and laughed together. She remembered things differently. She still swears, I didn't get mad at you. I'm like, you were really mad. So we got to rekindle that, and I just feel like that's so special that we got to get our friendship back to talking again all the time, and gonna desperately miss her. She was a big part of our family, and she's just remarkable, as you all know. Thank you.
So for those of you that know me, I promise you I won't let you be very long. But I'll be honest, majority of my interactions with Roxy were here or at events. I never had the pleasure of hanging out with Roxy one-on-one, beyond just talking after church and those kind of things. So, and that's on me, because Roxy made time for everybody. And but I kind of wanted to build on what Lexi said earlier, is that you could spend 30 seconds with Roxy and or 30 minutes, and even here after church, just kind of chit-chatting, she made you feel like the only person in the room. And that was so special, because you think, like, she didn't have to do that. I mean, nobody does, but she just had such a special ability to just be so present. And so, yeah, just kind of like I said, what Lexi said is that you, even just a brief interaction, she just really filled your cup. And I started coming to Hope Point in 2015, so I unfortunately have only known Roxy while she's been unwell. And it didn't ever, though, take away from the light that the Lord gave her. And I'm sure when she was healthier, it probably looked a little different. But the way she, like I said, poured into people was just, I can't imagine probably ever changed. I became a youth leader myself in 2018, and I already knew that that was a role she had here, and it was very obvious, because she would still be a help with events, whether it be check-in, or she could never, of course, let go of youth ministry. Even when she physically had to, it just wasn't something she was able to keep up on. And I almost said if I ever pass away, obviously I will, eventually. But that was creepy, like, I'm gonna live forever. I don't want to live forever. I do want to go be with the Lord one day and see Roxy again, of course. But if the room looks like this and people have things like this, even half the things, even half the people in the room, I would be so blessed. Because the love that was poured into each one of you, that is pouring back out to share, is just so tangible. And I, of course, wish I had spent more time with her, but I still treasure every moment because she made you feel so special. And so that's all I got. I told you.
Well, my name is Robert. I think a lot of people know, but Roxy was actually one of the first people of the church, besides the Lanes and Robin, that got Sue and I to come, that actually connected. We got a call from Kevin, and Kevin says, "Hey, Sue, do you think you could help with the youth?" And those of you that know my wife, she helps anyway, but she doesn't necessarily look for that role. And talking about being how passionate Roxy was about her calling and about her ministry is, even though, yeah, Sue said, "You know what, yeah, grandkids are getting ready to go into the youth group and that'll be good." And she goes, "Well, let me interview you." So, I mean, it wasn't just like, "Oh yeah, come in, I just need the bodies." That's not the way she was. We met at Starbucks. I got to be around when she basically interviewed both of us for her position. Had to make sure that it was the right fit for what she had in her mind and what the Lord had put on her heart. And it was. It was flourished. My grandkids did so well, and obviously a lot of members of this church is part, or a lot of, is because of Roxy coming to us and them learning about this church and this ministry. And we did have the pleasure of having one-on-one contact with Roxy when she got to come live with us for a little bit. She renamed our pets, which is, and she was adamant. I mean, Luna was not Luna anymore, it was Luna Fish. Kimber was not Kimber, she was little brother. I mean, and adamant about it. But she was so passionate, but so loving about everything she did. And all the way up until the end, she was pouring out. I got to go over to her apartment with my wife after she had passed, and it was amazing because her neighbors that we didn't know really, we just knew they were there to help, talked about her ministry, of the things that they didn't have to talk about, of how she helped the young lady with her baby and helped that, and her other neighbor with their son, and how they're talking about going to church and doing all this stuff. So she never stopped giving. Even when she couldn't feel like she could walk or get out of the house, it didn't matter. Her next door neighbor heard about the Lord. Her upstairs neighbor heard about the Lord, heard about her story. And that's what I remember. And then as you see every picture that she had up there, those dimples are real. And they're real, and every time you saw her, even when she was in agony, because we did get to see that, she would still get up and she goes, "Ah," and the dimples would still be there when she's walking out to the back porch. And that's what I'm going to remember is the infectious, just love of people and love of life. And she knew where she was going. So I know she's grateful for where she's at now. So we'll miss you, Roxy.
Amen. Oh, come on up. Come on, Sam.
Oh, such a beautiful picture. Oh, that's mine. Anyway, my name, if you don't know it, my name is Sam Hoover. I used to come here. And Deb is my sweet wife that I love. Oh, wow. Roxanne, we lived with Roxanne for a while and shared our home with her. And, we were a lot alike. I'm German. That tells you quite a bit about my personality. And Roxanne is Roxanne. So there was sometimes a bit of a conflict because when you love somebody so much, especially when you consider them a part of your family, you feel responsible for them when they're hurting and when they're in pain. And sitting here tonight, the lives that she changed, you know, everybody that's ever lived is always remembered for the same thing. Is the effect they had on the people around them. And she had that effect. So I miss her. And I wish I could have spent more time with her. I love her so much. Thank you.
Anybody else before we kind of close? If I could have the house band come. And I just want to share just a couple thoughts here real quick as we close. Have an amazing Mexican dinner for everybody. Would love for you to stick around. There's tables out here outside in the cove. And one of the things I just wanted to share with you briefly in closing, obviously we all knew and know the love that Roxy has for Jesus and has for her dog Chandler, who she's here, all right? And we know the love that Roxy had for Friends, for the TV show. And my wife said something to me yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. And she said, did you ever look at the lyrics of the song for Friends? And I said, I'm not a huge Friend TV guy. I mean, I've seen the episodes and stuff. And she goes, you should look at the lyrics of the song. And so I did. And I got to thinking about, why did Roxy love Friends so much? I believe it was more than just the characters. I mean, I think it was more than Ross's incredibly affectionate personality that became very awkward at times, every episode. I think it was more than Monica's overbearing neat and tidiness. I think it was more than Chandler's extremely witty and annoying sarcasm. Roxy had that trait sometimes. I think Roxy loved the show even more than Rachel's dedication with a pinch of being an airhead, or Joey's charming stupidity. I believe that her love for the show was more than that. I believe it was this song, I'll Be There For You. Have you ever just looked at the lyrics? I'm just going to share them with you briefly. First line is this: so no one told you life was going to be this way. That sums up the last decade for Roxy. This song could be her epitaph. No one told you life was going to be this way. Roxy was cruising along in cruise control, successful supervisor and coach for T-Mobile, traveling the globe. She was passionate at pastoring students. You saw them witness tonight. She was passionate about that. She was cruising along, 31 years old, driving in overdrive, the top down, wind blowing in her hair. Everything was humming along just great until one day, a decade ago, all the wheels came off. And at 31, almost 32 years of age, she was now fighting for her life with an unexpected illness that affected her heart. And no one told her life was going to be this way. But it didn't end there. The song continues. The next line says, your job's a joke. you're broke, and your love life is DOA. And for those who knew Roxy, before she got sick, she loved to work. In fact, I would say that she was a workaholic. So when it became apparent that she wasn't going to be able to keep up the pace anymore, she struggled to find her purpose outside of her career. And she could work, and she couldn't work, and then quickly it caught up with her, and she became broke in many sense. And no one told her that life was going to come out this way. She fought for her disability, even though she paid into it for a long time. Because why? She was a workaholic. And it seemed like everything about this new life was going to be a struggle. And the enemy was quick to try and get Roxy to dwell on it, to dwell on the struggle, instead of looking to Jesus for the answers. The song continues. It's like you're always stuck in second gear. After getting sick, Roxy had a hard time getting out of second gear. But she never stopped trying. She had been successful in so many things, running quickly in overdrive, doing this and that, and then when she couldn't get out of second gear, it was a struggle. And her mind was trained to drive fast and furious, but her body was saying, slow down, you can't do that anymore. And for a while, she resented having to drive in second gear and do life as in a slow pace. But in time, she began to embrace second gear. And she discovered the beauty of second gear, the benefits of slowing down and appreciating small victories. But the song's not done. It goes this. This is so amazing. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year, or your decade. When Roxy first got sick, we were all hopeful that she would get better. We all prayed that she would, this season would pass, this bump in the road, but days turned into weeks for her, and it turned into months and years and a decade later. And this marks 10 years, as my wife was sharing. And it's been a struggle with her issues. And what started out as just one issue began to snowball into multiple things that she couldn't even hold a cup sometimes of water. And it seemed that it was so difficult. And I remember multiple times having conversations with Roxy about what came first, the chicken or the egg. But watch what happens next. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your decade, but. Now, some of you have been sitting on your butts for several hours, and it's hurting right now. But I love the word but in songs. Every good song has a but, where they go from the verse to the chorus. Let me just read the chorus to you. When you haven't had your day, your week, your month, or even your year or decade, but I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like I've been there before, I'll be there for you because you've been there for me too. Even when the rain started to pour over Roxy's life, she was always there for all of her friends and her family, and many of you were there for her too. We talked about that. Many of you took Roxy in, and you loved on her. And whenever she could, she was a giver, and she would give back. And sometimes even to a fault. Pete, we talked about this. She would give more than she could give, but it would leave her with nothing. But here's the deal. She gave anyway. And she would spare no expense or energy just to contribute to making someone else's life better. And Roxy embodied friendship. She valued it, and she nurtured it, and she completely invested in it. And Roxy's friends were like family, and she loved well, clearly. But in some of her darkest seasons, when the love and support of her friends and family wasn't enough, Roxy had what she counted on: a love that would never disappoint, a friend that would stick closer than a brother, a friend that laid down his life to save her life. And as much as she loved to give, she met her match when she met Jesus. John 15:13 says, as greater love had no man than this, than a man who laid down his life for his friends. And that's what Jesus did. And like every good song, there's a bridge. And I got to read you this bridge. The bridge is designed to make everything hit home. And here it is. Here's the bridge. No one could ever know me. No one could ever see me. Seems you're the only one who knows what it's like to be me. Someone to face the day with, make it through all the rest with, someone I'll even laugh with, and even on my worst, I am best with. That was Jesus. That was Jesus. And at the end of her life, no one could know Roxy more than Jesus did. No one could ever see what Roxy was going through more than Jesus did. Jesus was the only one who truly knew what Roxy was truly experiencing, because he had been there too. And Roxy had something to face the day, to make it through, and it was Jesus. And here's the one thing I want to leave you guys with, and I think you'll take this with you. She never gave up hope in Jesus. And here's what she did last Sunday. She waltzed into this church late, and she stood right there. And that stood right there, and she began to just sway back and forth and praise her God. She never gave up. But that didn't mean she didn't have questions. That didn't mean she didn't struggle. It didn't even mean she didn't go through a season of really being frustrated with God and angry. But one of the most iconic episodes of Friends was the pivot episode. How many of you have ever seen the pivot episode? Where the gang is trying to carry a couch up a stairwell, and Ross keeps yelling out, "Pivot! Pivot!" You should go home and watch that. Roxy fought pivoting for so long. For so long, for so many years, she fought embracing this second gear, especially the last 10 years. But I have to tell you, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, Roxy pivoted. Like there was a pivot. Something changed in her. And that's what I want to share with you just briefly. Something changed in her. Roxy pivoted in her process. She pivoted in her heart posture. She pivoted in her spirit. She pivoted in her relationship with Jesus. And those closest to Roxy felt that pivot. Let me give you an example. When you would get together in her small group, Pastor Steve, she would be the first one with a laundry list of prayer requests. Well, here's what's going on in my life. Right? And she related. But the last 6 to 8 weeks, she wasn't given her prayer requests anymore. She was given praise reports. Praise reports of the little victories that she has. And answered prayer right there alone. Can you say amen? God is so good. She pivoted and she embraced it. And when she did that, God said, "All right, sweetie, it's time you come home." Everything changed. Everything changed. She pivoted. I believe if she could FaceTime us right now or Zoom us right now on the screens, I bet she would say 3 things to us. Number 1, she'd say, pivot your whens into now. Because believe it or not, most of us spend much of our life almost wishing our life away. And we say things like, well, when this happens, I'm going to do this. When I get money, I'm going to take the vacation. When I do this, I'm going to do that. When I have worked and saved enough money, then I'll retire. When the kids are growing, we'll get out of the house. I'll invest in my marriage. When I retire, on and on and on and on. When a tragedy hits, well, then I'll turn to God. Why is it so important to pivot your wins in the now? Because then rarely ever happens in life. In case you haven't realized it, the Bible says that life is brief. It's just the width of your hands. And we spell love around here, Time. And I believe Roxy would say, pivot your wins into now and be all in about what's around you. When you're with your family, put away your cell phones, put away your Game Boys or your Game Girls or whatever they have out there. I don't even know. Whatever it is, put it all away. Mom and dad, if you got young ones and they're just like, nee, like that, take it away from them, right? Roxy would say pivot and be all in the moments because life is brief. It's short. Why is it important? Because life is short. Embrace the now. The Bible says in Psalms 118:24, this is the day the Lord has made, and we need to rejoice in it. The second thing I think she would share is this. Pivot your intentions into actions. What good intentions do you have that you haven't followed through on yet? Most of us have great intentions. And like most of us, you probably haven't gotten around to it. Roxy would say, get around to it. James 4:17 says this, anyone knows the good that he ought to do and doesn't do it, it's sin. So what good intentions haven't you done? Connect with somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. That's what Roxy would say. To let them know that you appreciate them. Roxy would tell us, express your love for someone now, encourage someone now, and so thank them now for what they've done in your life. These are amazing times where we can get together and celebrate somebody, but Roxy, I believe, would say pivot that and do it now while you have an opportunity. And I believe also Roxy would say this. She would say, if you're holding on to something, seek forgiveness, and if they receive it, great. If they don't, move forward. Move forward. Resentment is a trap, and it gets a foothold on you. It's a hard thing to break away. Resentment always hurts you more than it hurts the person you resent. And you are only hurting yourself with bitterness. And if there's someone out there that you've hurt, apologize. For you and me today, it's not too late to apologize. I feel a song coming on. It's too late to apologize. It's not too late. Roxy says it's not too late. Proverbs 3:27 is this. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, come back later and I'll give it to you tomorrow when you have it in your possession right now. And the last thing is this, number 3. Roxy would say this. If she was Skyping us in, she was on the screen, she would go, guys, here's the deal. I've been to the other side. And I got to tell you, you need to pivot your life to Jesus. You need to pivot your life to Jesus. Roxy would say to you that Jesus is not looking for some perfect person. He's looking for someone far greater than that. He's looking for someone's hearts. When you give Jesus your heart, something forever changes. Romans 10:9 says this, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. John 14:6 says this, Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Roxy would say there's not many ways to heaven. Jesus just claimed it. And he says, look, I am the only way. If there were other ways, he wouldn't have had to do what he did on the cross. And then John 3:16, if you know it, say it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him will not perish, but have everlasting life. It's not a bunch of bad things that keep us from heaven. It's rejecting Jesus' amazing grace. And Roxy found that grace. And more than anything, Roxy wants each of you here today, in the now, to find the grace and the peace that she had. You will never truly know God is all you need until God is all you really have. And as much as we love Roxy, We couldn't be there for everything, but Jesus was. The best way to use your life is to love, and the best way to express love is time, and the best time to love is now, because life is brief. And I think I can speak for all of you today that I thank God for our time with Roxy, our friends, our daughter, our sister, our auntie, our cousin, and our friend. Will you stand with us? We're going to close with one song, and then we're going to say the Lord's Prayer together. And then we're going to go out and we're going to eat, because Roxy loves Mexican food, all right? And so I hope you come hungry. You should be. That was a 12-hour service. So everybody stood up and going, they're like, woo, I feel much better now. What do you got? Roxy's favorite. We got